Insanity. What are your plans? So that's the first thought that I wrote down when I came up with this journal entry. What are your plans, right? God always laughs at those that make plans. But you know what? Who cares? I don't mind getting laughed at. I'm going to make plans anyway. So what are your plans? Probably one of the most powerful forms of awakening is that of recognizing a negative feedback loop that's running on autopilot in your software. So that's what I'm going to put that up as a ticker there. So think about that. This is that definition of insanity. One of the most powerful shifts that you can make today is just by first recognizing that there's a negative feedback loop that is running in your software. Now, by software, what I mean your program, your program that's been programmed into your subconscious and keeps running under the impression. See, here's what's interesting about your ego and your subconscious and your programming that's come from the outside in. It's running under the impression that it's doing the right thing. Now, let's think about how that kind of happens. How can we do something that's producing a negative feedback loop and it not be good for us, but we continue to let it happen? Well, it thinks that it's doing the right thing, but who programmed it? So we've talked a lot about our mother, father, teacher, preacher, and society. What that means is, the programmers and society and the social media reel, me right now, those are your programmers, right? However, you take control of your life when you realize that your programmers are just, they're offering things, but you're the one that's consuming things. And remember, whatever it is that you consume ends up being what you assume. So you've been programmed by your MFTPS, but whatever you've been consuming on a regular basis is what is being received. So you get to choose that. Like, people can be offering you stuff. If somebody offers you shit today, you don't have to take it. You can just recognize, like your thoughts, that there's some shit being offered to you. But if somebody offers you a gift and you don't receive it, who does the gift belong to? The giver. So your consistent daily execution, so you absorb these things, your consistent daily execution of these programs or this information that's giving to you is where your software comes in. So you actually receive this programming, but by you executing it and practicing it on a regular basis, that's where you create what I'm referring to as your software. So can you identify a pattern of insanity in your program? So share that in the comments. I always read the comments. Awesome. So that daily consistent, execution. So insanity is defined by trying to get different results doing the same thing. We all know that, but can you identify your pattern of insanity? So if this is true, and it is, observe humanity. So don't just, sometimes it's hard to look at yourself because we like to hope and pray that we're doing things the right way. And when you're involved in personal growth, even more so, right? So observe humanity as it gets up and performs the same tasks. And this might be you today because you're part of humanity. The same tasks at work and life in an attempt to build something significant that's never really going to come. So that's what it means to identify. This first step to breaking the cycle of insanity is identifying that it's happening. What is it that you're getting up and doing every day that you can see does not move the ball down the field? So it reminds me of the fable Waiting for Godot. I don't know if you've ever heard of that fable. It's a really, really cool story where these two friends are kind of like waiting in this park. And the whole story is about they're waiting for their friend Godot. And at the end of the story, he never shows up. So the story is like we're waiting for something to show up that's never intended to show up. So that's an example of the definition of insanity. So then we die. Here's what we do. This is what most people do. They spend 85% of their life working towards what? I don't know, because they're on autopilot. So then we die, and only in the last 10 minutes of life before we disappear. And that is if you get that moment of contemplation, that clarity and contemplation in the last 10 minutes of your life. If you're so lucky, because if lights go out all of a sudden, you don't even get to contemplate that. But if you get that opportunity and that contemplation, that's when you realize what it is that you've done with your time. That's when you get to evaluate and you judge the thing. The only thing that really matters is whether or not you mattered. What did you do with your time, right? All the other stuff you're working towards right now, you will not think about in the last 10 minutes of your life. So insane, because we know not what we do, right? That's why we call this insanity. We know not what we do, as all this stuff happens unconsciously until we become conscious of it. I love that idea. I love the idea that things are unconscious until we become conscious of them. So you'll notice when I teach the interface response system in my book, step one is to become aware of what's happening, of your current response system. You can't change something until you're aware of it. What's his name? Power of Now. Isn't that amazing how I know something so well and I can't remember it. So you guys can tell me in the comments who's the author of The Power of Now. Eckhart Tolle. Okay, there you go. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about suffering, and I love suffering because, I practice the philosophy of Buddhism. But he says the first step to end suffering is the recognition that you are. So that's the step one. Catch the insanity. That's why I'm challenging you right now. Can you identify a pattern of insanity in your life? So that's something you're doing, expecting different results. So until we become conscious of it. So in Greek mythology, this is super cool. Check this out. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus, and I think that it was spelled Sisyphus if you want to look it up, or Sisyphos, same with an OS, was the founder and king of Ephyra. Okay, Hades, we know who Hades is, right? The guy downstairs. Hades punished him for cheating death twice by he was punished by cheating death. That's crazy. But Hades punished him for cheating death twice by forcing Sisyphus to roll an immense boulder up a hill, only for it to fall down every time he reached the peak. So that was his nightmare. For the rest of his life, his sentence was to roll this massive boulder up a hill and only to have it fall down when it reached the top of the mountain, repeating this action for eternity. That's what it is. Can you see that might be you? If you don't catch the pattern of insanity, I mean, you know how valuable that is? Forget about fixing it, but just catch it. You might be rolling that boulder up and you might not recognize it until you get to the last 10 minutes. So we've taken hold of a great power in the experience called life. So that power is potential and opportunity and this idea of living. But we don't know how to yield it because we keep trying to yield it with an unyielding structure. That's Sisyphus, right? Something he's doing with that boulder is not working. So we try to figure that out by just following what we see others do, just like an army of ants following a leader. Have you ever seen that? Look that up sometimes, because that's us. Look at the visual of human beings walking down the streets in some busy city. It's unbelievable. They look like an army of ants, but who are they following? They're following their pattern. They're following their program, and most of them don't even know it. If you walk up to a human being that's just aimlessly walking, right? Here you go. I see people saying Tolle. Thank you for that, Katie or Caddy 56. Is that Caddy or Katie? It says Ketty. But just go up and ask a human, say, where are you going? And then all of a sudden they'll wake up and they'll say, over here, right? And then you say, why? And you'll shake them up. You'll shake them up and be like, what's going on here in life? Most people are unconscious. So to take action today, let's focus on a solution. To take action today, step one, awaken to the insanity of your regularly scheduled program, your default mode. It's happening right now. If you're with me and you're always with me, that's okay, but you're in default mode right now. But just recognize it and identify if it's serving you. Acknowledge that you are working it, but ask yourself, are you working it or is it working you? That's step two, right? 3, reassess your goals. So here's what you need to do. Reassess, take another look, reassess your goals, your North Star. Right now, this is live at January 4th, right? By the way, it's my father's birthday today. So thank you. What I'm going to say to my father is, thanks for having me in so many ways. So step 3, reassess your goals, your North Star, and also identify their value to make them worth fighting for. That's the first thing you have to do. When you all of a sudden you identify the cycle of insanity, right? Catch yourself doing your routine, your program, and then reassess your goal so that you can identify if the things that you're doing are insane or if they're serving you, and make sure it's of value so that it's worth fighting for, because you're going to have to fight. And then the next step, find somebody, find a coach, find a mentor. This is what I've dedicated my life to, being that mentor for many people. Find a mentor that has, not knows, that has what it is that you desire, and ask them for guidance. Why would you ask somebody that has what you desire for guidance? Because they know how to get there, because they have it, right? Stop listening to people that don't have what you want tell you how to get it. There you go, because we have artificial intelligence teaching people now. And then 5, simple, go to work. But going to work after you've done those steps is so simple, right? Go to work with reckless abandonment, knowing that you are now in a structure that carries efficacy. So what I like to say at the other end, because you remember in the beginning, I said, what are your plans? At the end of all this, I'd like to say, unless you have other plans. Because you know what? Some people will hear this and then go back to their regularly scheduled program because their plan is to just stay safe and stay mediocre. Remember, if you continue to lick the lollipop of mediocrity, you will suck forever. Make sense? Well, I sure hope it does. I sure hope that this woke you up, took the blindfolds off of your program mind, unveiled what's going on in your program mind, and placed you as the dominant force of your life. Got a fortune cookie here, right? So we didn't eat the cookie because we're on our January challenge, my wife and I. So we're not eating cookies this month because it doesn't serve us. It would be insane to eat a cookie and expect the results we want. So it says, this is cool. No snowflake in an avalanche ever feels responsible. You know what I get from that? No snowflake in an avalanche feels responsible for the avalanche. That reminds me of how human beings are going through life without feeling responsible for their role in it, because they don't know what their role is, because they're just going with their program. And that's the cycle of insanity. So yes, snowflake, you do have a part in that avalanche, but you just have to wake up and identify it. So love and appreciate you all. Follow the 5-minute sub. I'm going to record the 5-minute version of this now for the podcast, which is blowing up. Go to riseupwithdragon.com, sign up for our newsletter. This will be the blog. Insanity will be the blog post there. Who knows, maybe that'll show up in Brains Magazine because I'm going to submit it as well. Love and appreciate you all. Have an amazing day.